Let me read to you a passage from the 11th chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, verses 28 to 30. It's the Gospel for Thursday of the 15th week of Ordinary Time. St. Matthew writes, Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who labour and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for yourselves. For my yoke is easy, and my burden light." That's from Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 to 30. And what does it suggest to us? Well, it is almost a byword that the problem of suffering and evil is the nagging and unresolved problem of mankind. Why is there not just peace and happiness? Why is it that from the cradle to the grave in the life of every man and woman there is a trail of difficulties and burdens? Such is the human condition. And it is a mystery because man is characteristically also convinced that there is a good God. But if there is a good God, why are things as they are? And, more importantly, what is to be done about it? There have been various attempts at an answer. For instance, at the time of the Hebrew prophets, such as Jeremiah, across in the Far East, Buddha was seeking his answer to the problem of suffering, and he thought he found it in the renunciation of all desires and the attainment of nirvana. However, he left out all reference to a personal God, and that is the glaring defect of classical Buddhism, because it is God who is the ultimate happiness of man. Now, consider Christ and his answer. He says, "Come to me, and you will find in me, in my very person, your rest." He does not simply say that if people follow his doctrine, then they will find happiness. Buddha made this claim. He does, of course, state that following him will involve accepting and following the path of his doctrine. Believing in him means learning from him, assenting to his doctrine wholly, and embracing it wholeheartedly. But that is not the beginning and the end of it. In the first instance, it means believing in his very person and entrusting oneself to his person. It means, in other words, acting towards him as one would act towards God. In God lies the happiness of man, and Christ makes the identical claim. In him, in his very person, in coming to him, in entrusting oneself and one's burdens entirely to his keeping and to his disposition, in taking up his yoke, will man attain the happiness that God intended for him. Buddha, Muhammad, and other formulators of a doctrine for the well-being and happiness of man entrusted their legacy to their followers and to history. They did not claim for their very persons the source of man's happiness. But this is exactly what Christ claimed, and he showed by his incomparable holiness and deeds that overburdened man is indeed called to come to him and find his rest in him. He says, "Place your faith entirely in my person and in my word, for I guarantee you that in me you will find rest for your souls." So our fundamental vocation as human beings is to turn to Jesus Christ and enter daily into his company, bringing with us all the difficulties inherent in our human condition and circumstances. Our calling is to love Jesus, to be with him, to learn from him, and to take upon ourselves his yoke. This consists in doing the will of God in union with him and according to his teaching and his way. He is the way, the truth, and the life, and he teaches us humility and meekness of heart. If we do this with him and in him, if we take up our cross every day and follow in his footsteps, then we shall find rest for our souls. If we take up his yoke, which is life for God in union with Jesus, and according to what St. Paul calls his mind, then all will be well. Let this mind be in you, St. Paul writes, that was in Christ Jesus. That is what the yoke of Christ is, and it is the key to our true happiness. So it is that the church which Christ founded, and which he constantly sustains as her head, bears continued witness to the world and to all the religions of man that the person of Christ and his ineffable revelation is the path to man's ultimate happiness here in this life and forever hereafter. This is what the saints did, and they found happiness beyond compare. We ought pray insistently for the grace to do as they did. Our gospel passage today is a passage that ought resound in our hearts, assuring us that the way to life and happiness is clear but difficult.